Hi there, I'm Dean Heskin, President and CEO of Swiss America Trading. Thanks for tuning in to our most recent podcast, The Secret War on Cash, where we take a look at some of the changing things in our financial markets, our economy, of which there's been a lot of them recently. And it looks as though some of the things that we've been talking about now for several months are going to become really a fast reality, maybe sooner than we think. I have with me today Chris Agelastos, my co-host. Good morning, Chris. How are you?
Doing well. Just gearing up for the Arizona summer.
Well, it's here.
Yeah.
Arizona, I think yesterday I saw driving home was 111 degrees. And
Yeah.
over the years, I can't even tell you how many people have asked, how do you do that? Because look, to be clear, 111 degrees is unbearable.
Right.
How we do it is I tell people all summer long, it's roughly 74 degrees. So what are you talking about? Well, my office is about 74 degrees. It's a good reason
Yep.
to stay in. Summertime, a lot of people like to get out of the office. We like to, if we're in the valley, stay in the office because that's where you can seek some kind of refuge. So
For sure.
Enough about that. But talking about heating up, what's really heating up is what's happening with the US dollar, what's happening with some of the changes taking place in our currency system. And the most recent on our first headline here, Saudi Arabia's petrodollar exit. And it says a global financial paradigm shift. Now, for those of you not familiar, the petrodollar was something that was put into place in 1974, which basically said that any oil purchases or transacting that took place around the globe was to be done in US dollars. So now we're 50 years into this deal, and Saudi Arabia, who tends to produce a little bit of oil for this world, they're saying they're done. No more petrodollar. We've been talking about this, and the ramifications of it could be very severe, in so much as that you have a instant demand factor that was created when the petrodollar agreement was reached, that now that demand or that need for the US dollar goes away, hence taking the strength away from the US dollar. Some of its strength, many people would suggest a lot of its strength, but that's what we're looking at. That's what we're being faced with. Chris, from your perspective or in your opinion, what might we expect to see as a result of this? What are the ramifications or repercussions potentially?
Well, it's just another nail in the coffin for the dollar, and certainly we're facing higher inflation. We're losing influence and power in the world from a financial standpoint. And again, not to say that it's all or nothing. We have power or we don't. Obviously, we're still a formidable player in the world, but this is definitely a blow. And one thing that I think a lot of people probably don't think about or realize is the petrodollar really gave us the strength and security to leave the gold standard and back our currency or support our currency with oil. And it's worked rather well for us. I mean, if you look at the typical lifestyle of a U.S. citizen versus a lot of other countries in the world, we've had it pretty good from the 70s till now. And that's something that we're losing. So, the fact that we've abandoned the gold standard and now we're losing the petrodollar, what's next? I mean, obviously that's not good. And, Saudi Arabia is going to be able to sell oil in many different currencies to other nations now. And they're also exploring at the same time CBDC platforms with this project M-Bridge that they talk about a little bit here. There's over 20 nations looking into supporting that so that they can basically electronically trade across borders without having to use the dollar. So it's certainly not good news for the dollar. That I think everybody will agree on.
Oh, for sure. And it's something that, again, as we've been talking about in several of our podcasts, it's gaining momentum by the day. And we've talked a lot about BRICS and how, in fact, a few podcasts ago, they're having a summit or a meeting this summer where half the countries or nations in the world will be in attendance. which is reflective of the fact that this is not a small deal. This isn't something that is insignificant when you have half the countries throughout the world that are on board with basically creating distance with the US dollar.
Yeah.
And in our next article here, the reason they're pretty similar. I mean, it's talking about the same thing, just two different authors.
Right.
Andre in this one is discussing the fact that this could signal the end of America's global financial dominance, and
Yeah.
raises the question. And I'm somewhat quoting here from the article. Of what the U.S. is famous for exporting, the world is buying, and the bottom line is that as I look at this article and I read the first article, I look at the second article, and we reflect back on the many times that we've covered this topic. It's a very serious thing. No one is any person who's weighing in on this, and I'm not talking about just our domestic firms here or analysts. I'm talking about throughout the world, people who are weighing in on this, people who may not really per se have a dog in the fight, all are saying the same thing, that this is big trouble for the US dollar. And I'm saying all this, Chris, and yet we don't hear anything about it in the news feeds, the newsreel, or in our what here as US citizens we're hearing from the talking heads that are in the know on this. And I mean, at what point does this become a concern enough where those people who are giving us the data, the information about the state of our economy, the state of our currency, when are they going to weigh in on this? And when is somebody going to ultimately wave a flag and say, hey, we've got a problem here?
I don't think they will, at least until it's so far gone that they can't ignore it anymore. And here's why I say that. They would basically have to come onto the TV and say, okay, America, expect higher interest rates, expect more strains on the banking system. We're going to lose more banks. We're going to have some failures. The federal budget is in trouble, especially because of these higher interest rates. We're going to need more money, so we're going to have to raise your taxes. If they were on TV saying that, how do you think people would react, right? I mean, especially going into an election year. So, I just don't think anybody wants to shine light on this, dirty little secret, if you will. The bottom line is the U.S. is going to lose some control, and it's probably going to affect all of our standards of living. To at least some degree, here in the U.S. Not to say we can't do things to hedge ourselves and protect ourselves. Typically tangibles will do well in a high interest rate environment. So, gold, silver, land, things of that nature. So it doesn't mean that you don't have any options, but if you're not paying attention and you're just watching the mainstream media, you're probably going to be pretty unaware, of what's going on.
Yeah, and I think there are a lot of people that I've talked to over the years. When you see headlines like this, there's a tendency oftentimes for them to say, well, what does this matter? How does this pertain to me, my life, and my future? And you kind of touched on really the main thing there, which is what it does to not only lessen the strength of our US dollar, but could create a tailspin in terms of lost value in the dollar, et cetera, which the ripple effect of that would be felt tremendously throughout really every aspect of our economy, through the real estate market, through our bond market, through our stock market. And the undertone to this whole thing is that a lot of these countries, especially when you get back into those BRICS nations, not only do they not care what kind of damage or pain that may cause here in the United States, they revel in the fact that it will cause pain. Yeah. And that's the problem. That is where the damage and the toll this would take on the American households out there would be huge and possibly very severe. So that's where, as you mentioned, diversification is the key. And I'll use that as a perfect lead into those of you tuning in. If you have not contacted our office, to get some information, get our report, The Secret War on Cash. It's completely free, as well as information on how to become better financially diversified with your investments, your savings, your retirement. You can do that by contacting us at 1-800-289-2646, or you can visit us online at www.swissamerica.com. Thank you so much for tuning in. The articles and the contact information that you need to get in touch with us is in your description there. If you have not subscribed to this podcast, please do so, as we'd love to stay in contact with you and bring you some more information or news, updates, etc., on these changing things in our economy. Thanks so much, Chris. Have a great rest of your day. And those of you tuning in, please do the same.
Yep. Take care.